So I want to offer the framework that we're going to be going into much more detail with tomorrow. And this is the basic framework within Buddhist teaching that loving kindness fits within, and that is the topic of the four Brahma Viharas. Brahma means celestial or supreme. One translation I heard of it that I liked quite a lot was the word best. Vihara means dwelling or abiding or home. So taken together, these are four qualities that are said to form our best home. And like any home, we may not, home base even, we may not be there all the time, certainly. But when we get back there, it has a certain sense, a certain feeling tone, like we're home, right? It should be the place where the most relaxed, the most authentic, the least pretentious, we're home. So these four qualities are said to form our best home. The first of these is loving kindness. The second is compassion. The third is this quality called sympathetic joy, which means actually having happiness for the happiness of others, rather than hearing about someone's success or good fortune and falling sway to the voice which so often arises within that says, ew, I wish you had a little bit less going for you right now. You don't have to lose everything, but if the light could just dim a bit, that would be really good. The opposite of that is sympathetic joy. It's actually being happy for someone else's happiness. And then the fourth of these qualities that are working together is equanimity. Equanimity in this context means the balance that's born of wisdom. It's like perspective. You know, the perspective we get through learning, through understanding, through getting older, through having lived a life, through seeing more clearly. That quality of perspective is like a sense of spaciousness that accompanies our compassion, accompanies our loving kindness. You know, if compassion, for example, you know, and I'll go through a lot of this tomorrow, is sometimes described as the trembling of the quivering of the heart in response to seeing pain or suffering. It's this movement of our heart wanting to be there to see if we can help. And sometimes we can't help. That's like the truth of things. That's just the nature of reality. And rather than falling into a kind of despair or helplessness or some terrible feeling that will actually make us withdraw, equanimity, that balance that is the voice of wisdom that recognizes this is not my universe to control. Too bad, actually, but that's how it is. That can actually strengthen compassion, because then we can hang in there, you know, without so many expectations and frustrations and demands on a situation. So these four work together. They can actually be practiced as individual practices. They're very similar to the metta, but different phrases, different sequence, and so on. Or more commonly, we take one vehicle, like the vehicle of loving kindness, and we practice all four through that one vehicle. We say equanimity is always there, even if it's kind of hidden, because another aspect of this model is that each of these four states within the Buddhist psychology is said to have what they call a far enemy and a near enemy. The far enemy is clearly the opposite state. You would never confuse the far enemy with the Brahma Vihara state itself. Whereas the near enemy is close enough. So it would be awfully easy on a superficial level to actually confuse them. And it takes some real looking to understand, oh, these are very different, actually. So we'll just stick with loving kindness for now, since we'll do the others tomorrow. The far enemy of loving kindness is aversion, which in the Buddhist psychology is both anger and fear. They're considered the same state, just two different forms. Anger being the expressive, energized, outflowing form. fear being the held in, frozen, imploding form of striking out against what's happening, wanting to separate from it, wanting to declare it to be untrue. That's aversion, and loving kindness is the clear energetic opposite of that, which is why they say the Buddha taught loving kindness as the antidote to fear. That's how the legend goes, how it came about. The near enemy of loving kindness is attachment. And this isn't the word attachment as we use it, in Western psychological theory, bonding and nurturing and appropriate object relationship and all of that. It really has a very particular meaning, which I sometimes try to make clearer by actually substituting the word control. When we are attached in this particular sense, we are trying to control something that cannot be controlled. Another person's behavior, the unfolding of life, the truth of change. When we live in defiance to how things are, we're going to hurt. It's going to be a state of suffering. Doesn't mean attachment is bad, it's wrong, we should condemn it, but we can understand the suffering that's involved when we have that kind of fixation, that holding, that need for things to be a certain way when we can't make them so. It doesn't mean we don't want anything, it doesn't mean we don't care. Definitely we care. It doesn't mean we don't bond or we don't have particular relationships. But attachment is a very interesting thing to look at all in and of itself. How we insist that something not change. Well, good luck. Or we get so fixated on things being a certain way. Even, in a kind of a manifestation of kindness, wanting things to be a certain way. Needing things to be a certain way. And of course we want things to be a certain way. We want our actions to be effective. We want someone to find some relief. We want them to change perhaps the pattern of behavior that really seems to be causing so much suffering. But can we make it so? And what happens when we think we've got to make it so? And it doesn't work. So those are all part of the investigation and the exploration of attachment. And it said that equanimity is what will keep loving kindness from falling into its near enemy. It will allow loving kindness to actually be loving kindness rather than become attachment. So that's why we say equanimity is always there as a kind of secret ingredient. And going back to what I started with these practices being like practices of generosity of the spirit. We all know, let's go to material generosity for a moment, because sometimes it's easier just to understand because it's so concrete. We all know there's so many ways to give a gift, right? You can give a gift and it's really a freely given gift. You hope they enjoy it, you delight in the giving. You do the best you can with the sensitivity for appropriateness. Like maybe I have a gift for one of you and I only have one and there are all these people in the room. So, I try to do it carefully and I try to take your side and I try to do it skillfully and all these things. But we don't know what's going to happen, right? Maybe you checked your cell phone messages in that last break and you just found out you won $10 million in the lottery. It's like you couldn't care less about this thing I'm giving you, and you kind of nod distantly and walk away. Right? We never know, because you can't really say to somebody, I'd like you to arrive at 4 o'clock. Please don't check your cell phone messages. Don't check your email. Don't have a conversation with anybody. And don't think about a thing that might put you in a bad mood. I want you to arrive at 4 o'clock as a completely blank slate, because life's not like that. Remember, every moment is all these conditions coming together and coming apart. So if we give with a lot of strings attached, like, oh, you've got to thank me loudly, you've got to thank me 4 times, you've got to put it on right away and say it's the best sweater you've ever gotten in your entire life, even though it's 84 degrees here, we're going to hurt. Because sometimes we will get what we want, and sometimes we won't. Life's just like that. One of the ways equanimity itself is developed, which we'll talk about a lot more tomorrow, is really the understanding of the changeable nature of conditions. We get what we want and we don't. Sometimes we have pleasure, sometimes we have pain. My favorite one to talk about is praise and blame. You do something, or you say something, or you write something, and some people praise it, and other people don't like it all that much. That's like in the nature of things, and we can get useful information sometimes from that. We can get feedback that we can really utilize in a good way, and all of it is actually outside of our control. Right? So if we have equanimity, then our loving kindness can be a freely given gift. Otherwise, it becomes what one of my friends once called metta with an edge. May you be happy by, let's say, Tuesday. I've got a long list of people, and I need you to really get happy by Tuesday so I can move on with things. And, may you be happy in the following 15 ways, and I've been telling you for years how to live. That's an edge. That's not a freely given gift. So we say that equanimity allows loving kindness to actually be loving kindness, to be that freely given gift. Rather than, and it's so easy for it to become that kind of attachment, that sort of need. There's almost nothing easier, and it will become that, and then we come back, we start over. And then it'll become that again, and then we start over, and that's the nature of the path, that's the nature of the progression. So, the other element in the Buddhist psychology, besides the near enemy and the far enemy, is what's called the proximate cause. And the proximate cause is a very likely springboard for the quality itself, the Brahmavihara quality itself, to arise. It's not the only springboard, it's not the only cause or condition by any means, but it's a very good platform for the arising of that Brahmavihara state. So we say that the proximate cause for loving kindness to arise is first looking for the good in someone. Again, it's not that you want to be deluded about things or enter this kind of strange state where you're denying all problems and you're becoming conflict avoidant and all of that. But if we obsess about someone's faults and we just go over them and over them and over them, as we like to do, then naturally we will feel a stronger and stronger sense of separation, like this real gulf of alienation and this rather rigid sense of self and other, right? Whereas if we can find one good thing about this person, there will be a bridge that gets created, even if it's a small thing, and we just give it a little airtime, we reflect on that a bit, then we will feel a different kind of connection to them. So then we can look at what's difficult, what's hurtful, what's really not working, but from a different stance, without such a huge sense of separation. So this is a very classical instruction. Start by looking for the good in people. And there I was in Burma in 1985 doing 3 months of this practice, and that was one of my instructions. Think of all these different people, friend and benefactor and enemy, difficult person, look for the good in them. And my very first thought was, I don't want to do that. I thought that's what stupid people do. They go around looking for the good in everybody. I don't like people like that. But as I just said, there I was in Burma, in a Burmese monastery, in that very particular kind of traditional teacher-student relationship. It really wasn't going to fly for me to say, I don't feel like it, or show me why I have to. So I did it, and it was so interesting, because it worked. I found it worked in just the way it was described to work. Not that I entered this completely stupid realm of trying to pretend there were no problems anywhere with anybody, but it just shifted enough so that I didn't have that kind of intense, overwhelming sense of alienation. I even thought of somebody I found quite irritating, usually, who I think many people would find quite irritating, usually. And I have this memory of once having seen him do this really kind, generous act for someone else, someone like a mutual friend. And he did this in the most beautiful way, where she didn't feel condescended to or pitied in some way. It was just beautifully done. And I remembered that. And then I thought, I don't want to think about that. That complicates things. I liked it better when he was all bad all the time. You know, but life is complicated. Right? So it's an interesting experiment. Look for the good. That's the first proximate cause. And sometimes, in reality, we will not find that. I mean, another thing we're going to do tomorrow is loving kindness for the difficult person. And this is the second instruction that is the least popular that I have given in my 30-some years of teaching. Because part of that instruction is don't start with the hardest person imaginable. Start with somebody that's just, it's a little bit awkward, or there's discomfort, or a little bit of fear or anxiety or something, lack of harmony. It's not like we never get to the hardest person. But it's a movement, because all along the way we're building confidence and clarity. Like, there's some very big questions involved here. Like, what does it mean to have loving kindness for someone else and for yourself? What does it mean to have compassion for somebody and not give in? What does it mean to really, really care and realize you're not in control? And it's not that we necessarily try to figure that out theoretically, but that's the process of the exploration that we're going through. And so it can be awfully disheartening and kind of overwhelming if you start with the hardest person. But here too, I find there's something in us that kind of likes to do that. But anyway, we'll get to that tomorrow. You know, so sometimes we will not find one good thing about someone. It's just going to be not happening. And then there is this other reflection that comes up as a proximate cause, which is what we talked about a little earlier, that everybody wants to be happy. Everybody actually wants the same thing. And it's because of the force of ignorance that we make so many mistakes. And we get so confused about where happiness is to be found. But everyone actually wants to be happy. And so that serves also as a kind of springboard for the cultivation of metta. Okay, so there's one more practice that we're going to end with, which many of you are familiar with, and we're going to do it in the form of loving kindness, and that practice is sharing merit. So the word merit is probably a somewhat unfortunate translation. I don't know what a better translation would be. The belief in Buddhist teaching is that when we do something toward the good, when we're kind, when we're generous, when we're restrained, like it would be awfully easy to tell a lie and we don't. When we meditate, even if it feels like our meditation is really crummy. When we learn, when we question, when we investigate, when we kind of engage in life in those ways, that is said to produce a kind of energy or generate a positive force. That positive force is the merit. It's when we open to the good, when we incline our minds toward the good. This is said to be a very potent force. And so when we come to an end of a day like this, or some people do it at the end of every sitting, something like that, rather than going home and thinking, wow, I made a lot of merit today, and kind of putting it in the safe and locking it away, we dedicate it and we share it, we offer it. It too is an act of generosity. So we appreciate the force of that action, whatever it is, and then we dedicate it. We make an offering of it to others and ultimately to all beings. So I'll just guide you through that now as we close for the day. So the first thing is actually appreciating the fact that you were here and taking a real delight in that. You know, it's not the same as being conceited or egotistical or patting yourself on the back, but there are lots of ways of spending a Saturday. You know, and you made some choices toward the good, really. And when you sat down to meditate, even if you didn't feel your concentration was fantastic, it's the fact that you sat down to do it that is what creates that positive energy. And then when your attention wandered, you came back. You started over again and again. You can feel the energy of that. And appreciate that. And think of those who helped you be here. Maybe they've taken care of things at home today so that you could be here. They've taken care of us here. Maybe they inspired you or moved you long ago. And for whomever comes to mind with whatever words seem right to you, you can make that offering. May the merit or the power of my practice be shared with you. May you be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease. Whatever words seem right to you. And those whom you know are hurting or struggling. Is an affirmation of the fact that our practice could never be just for ourselves alone. May the merit of my practice be shared with you. May you be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease. and with one another as we've co-created this experience. And with all beings everywhere, may the merit of my practice be shared with all beings. And may all beings be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease. So thank you so much. May you be happy and safe and well and peaceful and all good things. I'll see many of you tomorrow. And may you all enjoy your evening.